Political parties exist for one reason alone. That is, of course, to exercise political power. To be successful, the Liberal Party needs to convince most of us that it's best for the country. If you want to know how the Liberal Party works and what went wrong with its most recent stint in power, you'd talk to party elder John Howard. Apart from the Liberal Party founder, Robert Menzies, no one has served longer as Prime Minister. Three Prime Ministers, Tony Abbott, Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison. Who was the better?
They each had qualities. I thought Tony Abbott did a wonderful job in bringing us back into government after such a short period of time and restoring order to our border protection policy. I thought Malcolm Turnbull's capacity to argue the economic case was very, very good. And I thought Scott Morrison's performance in 2019, a miracle.
I have always believed in miracles.
Was quite outstanding, so I'm not going to attempt doing that because I don't think it's possible. Thank you.
Gather round.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
John Howard can still pull a crowd. So too can this man. The former and current leaders teaming up to launch a book about the future of the Liberal Party.
We focus on the things which unite us, on family, on community, on duty and pride in our country.
For Peter Dutton, the next chapter will be the toughest, returning his party to power.
We'll have policies of consequence designed to have wide appeal to many Australians.
I want to get your big picture summary to start off with. The coalition, obviously 2013 to 2022, almost a decade of government. How would you assess it?
Messy. It was definitely messy. People tried their best, but there just wasn't a thread of unity and support for the overall cause that there was in the Howard government.
Mr. Speaker, to the chagrin of a few and the joy of many, maybe even some in this place, I'm retiring from the Australian Parliament.
Before retiring from politics, Christopher Pyne had spent more than half of his life as the member for Sturt.
It's time to put the people first, second and third, and politics last, ladies and gentlemen.
On the outer in the Howard years, he was a central player in both the Abbott and Turnbull governments.
There wasn't a sense of support or unity, a golden thread, if you like, of somebody has to be the leader and we just all have to sort of suck it up and do our jobs. That didn't happen.
Why not?
Well, because other people wanted the leader's job and they couldn't subsume their own ambition in the common cause.
While Tony Abbott's publicly supporting Mr Turnbull, privately he's joined the dissenters, possibly as an alternative leader.
Tony's expressed a number of views, each of which is at odds with the view he expressed before.
What's your view of Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull as men?
Two bulls in the same paddock. Very different characters, but obviously deep enmity between them.
Morning. How are you?
Before serving as Scott Morrison's deputy, Josh Frydenberg was a trusted minister under Abbott and Turnbull. You worked effectively with both of them.
I did.
Do you trust both of them?
I work very effectively with both of them. I like both of them and I can trust them.
Neither of them trusts the other, right?
Well, that's pretty obvious.
This is the Liberal Party room where, in sitting weeks, all the MPs come together to debate legislation, thrash out policy behind closed doors. And all too often, when there are leadership ructions and leadership challenges, this is where it all comes to a head. After John Howard, Brendan Nelson became leader. He was torn down by Malcolm Turnbull. Then, in this room in 2009, Tony Abbott took the leadership from Malcolm Turnbull by one vote.
The final ballot was won by Tony Abbott, 42 votes to 41.
I am feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Will you run for leadership again? So can you see yourself, Malcolm Turnbull, as a leadership contender at any point in the future?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on any of that. The only thing I want to be, as far as the future is concerned, is that there will not be a by-election in Wentworth, assuming there isn't a bus waiting round the corner to get me when I leave the Parliament. But yes, tread carefully.
Soon, however, Turnbull declared that he would quit politics altogether. Then he had second thoughts.
He said that he'd begun to regret it. He sought my advice, and I said, Malcolm, if you feel that way, then why don't you change your mind, publicly cancel your resignation?
And I'm sure John Howard did that because he thought we needed to have a spare. And that if Tony Abbott didn't work out, and he's a great supporter of Tony Abbott, so we all know that, he thought Malcolm is actually a great man and we need a spare if it all goes wrong. And it all went wrong, and we had the spare.
Tony Abbott said to me before the 2013 election when we discussed this, he said to me, mate, I've seen what happened to Rudd and Gillard, and I can assure you, we'll run an effective, stable government. Tony believed that, of course. He was very sincere, and he recognised that that had to happen. Well, it didn't.
Australians elected the Federal Coalition to office with a thumping majority.
6 years on from losing power, and after Labor's Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard and Rudd returns chaos, the coalition was back in office.
I can inform you that the Government of Australia has changed for just the second.
Tell us about that night when Tony Abbott claimed a landslide victory in 2013.
Well, firstly, I was elated. I was elated.
It was a landslide. Tony Abbott led the coalition to a 14-seat majority.
You obviously enjoyed hearing it, so let me say it again. The Government of Australia has changed.
Tony had done an extraordinary job as opposition leader. The most effective, if not more effective, leader, I think, from opposition since Malcolm Fraser. Few more indefatigable, few more relentless than Tony, and always fighting. And, you know, that was the nature of opposition, and still is.
And I can inform you that the Australian Labor Party's vote is at the lowest level in more than 100 years.
Lindsay and Lingiari, these are all seats the coalition has picked up tonight.
The 2013 campaign really was around three words which came out of the party platform: hope, reward and opportunity. Hope for the future, reward for hard work and an opportunity for all.
When you think of the hope on the night of that initial victory, were those hopes quickly dashed?
I don't think they were quickly dashed.
The Prime Minister didn't make it till the next election.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
The two big personalities were always going to be a problem. Malcolm Turnbull was never going to play second fiddle to anyone. He was always going to be looking for the opportunity when he could take on Tony Abbott, of course, but Tony Abbott was the one that opened the door for him.
In the final moments of the election campaign, Abbott summarised his promises.
No cuts to education, no cuts to health, no change to pensions, no change to the GST, and no cuts to the ABC or SBS.
Little more than 24 hours later, he'd won and was pledging to be a man of his word.
A government that says what it means and means what it says.
But his first budget with Treasurer Joe Hockey in 2014 included cuts and shake-ups in crucial areas like health, public broadcasting and taxation.
There's a new petrol tax, there's a new doctor's tax, new taxes on medicines, new taxes on going to the hospital.
We have taken a hit because it was necessary for our country. If that means some short-term damage for us, so be it.
Come on, guys.
Politics, Chris, is the art of the possible. The 2014 budget was mission impossible.
The catastrophe for him was the 2014 budget, where he broke a slew of promises.
Veteran journalist Chris Uhlmann has spent most of his career covering Canberra politics.
In that budget, he again made the federal government the problem and drew an enormous target around himself. And from that point on, Malcolm Turnbull had an opportunity at some stage to take him if there were more mistakes. And unfortunately, Chris, there were so many more mistakes.